The shuttle landed with a heavy thud on Station Orion 7, felt her stomach drop as the doors opened and cold recycled air rushed inside. She grabbed her bag and stepped out into the massive docking bay. Hundreds of alien species walked past her. Some had 4 arms, some had scales, some floated above the ground. And there she was, a small human woman from a small country on a small planet called Earth. She was 24 years old. She had spent 6 years in the Korean military before the Galactic Defense Coalition selected her for the Unified Species Combat Academy. She did not know why they picked her. Her scores were average. Her body was average. There was nothing special about her except that she never quit, but that did not seem like enough to be here. A tall figure approached her. He was human too. His name tag said. He was maybe 2 years older than her, with tired eyes and a kind face. "You must be the new one," he said in Korean. "Welcome to hell." Looked around the station. Aliens of every shape and size trained in open courtyards. Some lifted weights that looked heavier than cars. Some moved so fast they blurred. Some practiced with weapons that glowed with strange light. "It does not look so bad," she said. Laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "Wait until you meet Instructor." They walked together through long metal hallways, explained things as they went. The academy trained soldiers from 12 species. Each species had different abilities. They had armor like skin and 4 powerful arms. They could move objects with their minds. They could regrow any part of their body. Humans had none of these things. "So why are we here?" asked. "Politics," said. "Earth joined the coalition 5 years ago. They needed to send soldiers to prove we belong, but nobody thinks we actually do." They reached the barracks. Another human was already there. His name was. He was young, maybe 22, with a loud voice and nervous energy. He shook his hand too hard. Finally, another human said, "Now we have 3 humans against the whole galaxy. We are going to show them what Earth can do." Said nothing. She put her bag on an empty bed and looked out the window. Below, she could see a training yard. A group of soldiers were fighting each other with heavy blades. Their movements were brutal and fast. One of them got cut across the chest. The wound was deep, but they just kept fighting. His armored skin had already stopped the bleeding. Touched her own arm, soft, breakable human. A loud alarm rang through the station. Stood up quickly. "Assembly," he said. "Time to meet the instructor." They joined hundreds of cadets in a massive hall. The ceiling was so high could not see the top. At the front stood a creature that made her heart freeze. Instructor he stood over 2 meters tall. His body was covered in dark brown armor plates. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His face had no nose, just 2 large black eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. "Welcome to the academy," said. "Most of you will fail, some of you will die, the weak will be removed, the strong will serve the coalition." His black eyes moved across the crowd and stopped on the 3 humans standing together. "Ah," he said, "the soft meat from Earth." Some aliens in the crowd laughed, kept her face still. Walked toward them. Each step shook the floor. He stopped right in front of and looked down at her. "Tell me, little human, what can you do? Can you stop a plasma blast with your skin? Can you lift a combat mech? Can you survive in the cold of space?" "No," said. "Then why are you here?" Did not answer. She did not have an answer. Made a sound like laughing. Earth should have stayed in its little corner of the galaxy. Humans are weak. Humans are slow. Humans break easily and die fast. You do not belong here. He turned back to the crowd. "Tomorrow we begin live plasma training. Every species will show what they can do. I expect the humans to fail. I expect them to wash out like the others before them." The assembly ended. Cadets returned to their barracks. Was angry, his face red. "Who does he think he is?" said. "We are not weak. Humans have fought wars for thousands of years. We conquered our whole planet." "Our planet is small," said quietly. And we conquered it by killing each other. That is not something to be proud of here. Sat on her bed. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth. Her grandmother had survived war, poverty, and loss. She never complained. She just kept going. Before left for the academy, her grandmother had held her hands and said one thing. When everything burns, find the still point inside yourself. That is where your strength lives. Did not fully understand those words, but she held onto them. That night she could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling and listened to the hum of the station. Tomorrow they would face plasma grenades. Tomorrow Instructor would try to break them. She closed her eyes and searched for the still point her grandmother had described. She did not find it yet, but she would keep looking. Outside her window the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them was Earth. Somewhere among them was home. But home was far away now. Here she was just soft meat. She had to become something more. The blast chamber was the largest room had ever seen. The walls were made of thick black metal designed to contain explosions. The floor was covered with burn marks from years of training. The air smelled like smoke and something chemical that made her eyes water. Instructor stood in the center with a metal case at his feet. Inside the case were plasma grenades. They glowed soft blue through the glass. Each one contained enough energy to burn through steel. "Today you will prove your worth," announced to the assembled cadets. "Each species will demonstrate how they handle plasma weapons. The strong will advance. The weak will be removed from the program." They went first. 4 of them stood in a circle while threw a live grenade into their center. When it exploded, blue fire washed over their bodies. They did not move. Their armored skin absorbed the heat. When the flames died, they stood unharmed. Not even their eyes blinked. The crowd cheered. Next came They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large heads. A cadet raised her hand, and when the grenade flew toward her, it stopped in midair. Her mind held it still. Then she pushed it away into a containment pit where it exploded safely. More cheers. They were perhaps the most disturbing. They were gray creatures that looked almost liquid. When a grenade exploded against one of them, it burned away half his body. But within seconds, new flesh grew back. He reformed himself like nothing had happened. He even smiled. Watched all of this with a cold feeling in her stomach. Humans could not do any of these things. Humans burned. Humans did not heal fast. Humans could not stop objects with their minds. Finally, turned to the 3 humans. "Your turn, soft meat." He handed them standard deflection shields. They were small metal discs meant to redirect energy. Had trained with them before. They worked against weak blasts. Against plasma grenades, they would do almost nothing. Took his shield without complaint. Hands were shaking, held her steady and waited. Threw the first grenade. It was aimed at. He raised his shield and managed to deflect most of the blast, but the edge of the fire caught his arm. He grunted in pain but stayed on his feet. The second grenade went too. She moved fast, angling her shield just right. The blast slid past her, but she felt the heat burn her cheek. Her skin turned red and raw. The third grenade went too. He froze. The grenade landed at his feet and he just stood there, staring at it with wide eyes. His body would not move. Fear had locked him in place. Moved without thinking. He threw himself at and pushed him out of the blast zone. The grenade exploded. Blue fire covered his back. He screamed. The smell of burning flesh filled the chamber. Medics rushed in and carried away. Sat on the ground, shaking, unable to speak. Watched all of this with cold satisfaction. "The humans have failed the baseline assessment," he announced. "One injured, one frozen with fear, one barely surviving." He looked at, "You are the best of them and you are still nothing." Wanted to argue. She wanted to say that had saved a life, that courage mattered more than armor, but she knew would not listen. To him, strength was all that counted, and humans were not strong. The training day ended. Cadets returned to their quarters, went to the medical bay instead. Lay on a white bed. His back was covered in healing patches. The burns were serious but not deadly. Human medicine had improved much since Earth joined the coalition. They could fix most injuries now, but the pain was still real. "You should not have done that," said quietly. Managed a small smile. "He is young," he panicked, "anyone would. Will use this against us. Was always going to use something against us." Closed his eyes. "Do not let him win, that is what he wants. He wants us to quit. He wants to prove that humans do not belong here." Looked at the burns on his back, red and blistered. Tomorrow they would scar, would carry those marks forever because he chose to save someone else. That night did not sleep. She sat in her quarters with her and read everything she could find about plasma weapons. She learned how they worked. She learned about their energy patterns and blast radius. She studied the physics until her eyes hurt. Then she put down and sat in silence. She thought about her grandmother again. The old woman had lived through things could not imagine: war, hunger, loss, but she never broke. When was young, she had asked her grandmother how she survived. "I learned to be still," her grandmother had said. "When the world is chaos, find the quiet place inside yourself. Fear cannot touch you there. Pain cannot touch you there. You become like water. You flow around the things that try to destroy you." Closed her eyes, she breathed slowly. In and out, in and out. She searched for that quiet place. She did not find peace. She found something else instead. She found anger, cold and hard like iron. Thought humans were weak. He thought they would break. But humans had survived ice ages. Humans had survived plagues. Humans had built cities from nothing and crossed oceans in wooden boats. Humans did not survive because they were strong. They survived because they refused to die. Tomorrow would test them again. He would try to break them again. Opened her eyes. She would not break. The second day began with Instructor standing before a different case. This one was larger. This one was black. When he opened it, even the soldiers stepped back. Inside was a Class 4 plasma bomb. It was the size of a human head and glowed with deep orange light. The energy inside it moved like liquid fire. Could feel the heat from 10 meters away. This was not a training grenade. This was a real weapon, the kind used in actual combat, the kind that could destroy a small building. "Yesterday was child's play," said. "Today I will show you what real war looks like. I will show you the kind of fire you will face when you fight for the coalition." He lifted the bomb with 2 of his 4 arms. His armored hands held it easily. The other cadets watched in silence. Some of them looked nervous. Even they who could regrow their bodies seemed uncomfortable. "This bomb has a 10-second timer," continued. "When I activate it, I will throw it into the containment pit. You will watch. You will understand. You will learn that plasma is not something you can fight. You can only survive it if you are strong enough." He looked at the humans as he said this. His message was clear. You are not strong enough. Stood between and had returned to training despite his injuries. His back was still bandaged under his uniform. Had not spoken since yesterday. Shame hung over him like a dark cloud. Pressed a button on the bomb. It began to hum. Orange light pulsed faster. 10 seconds, he said. "Watch and learn, cadets." He pulled his arm back to throw. And stepped forward. "Let me hold it." Her voice was not loud, but in the silent chamber everyone heard it. Stopped, his black eyes fixed on her. His mandibles clicked together in confusion. "What did you say?" "Let me hold it," repeated. "The bomb, I will hold it." The chamber was completely still. 300 cadets from 12 species stared at the small human woman who had just asked to hold a live plasma bomb. Grabbed her arm. "No, this is suicide." She gently removed his hand. "Trust me." Made that grinding sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "You want to die, soft meat. You want to burn." "I want to show you something," said. "Show me what?" "How humans scream, how your flesh melts." Stepped closer to her. He was so much bigger. His shadow covered her completely. "I have seen humans die before. It is not impressive." "Then you have nothing to lose by letting me try." The words hung in the air, studied her with those cold black eyes. The bomb hummed in his hands. 7 seconds had already passed. The timer was paused, waiting for him to resume it. "You are serious," he said. It was not a question. "Yes." A cadet spoke up. "Instructor, this is against protocol. You cannot allow." Silence. Did not look away from. "This human wants to prove something. Let her prove it." He held out the bomb. His heart was beating fast now. She could feel it pounding against her ribs, but her hands did not shake as she reached out. Her fingers wrapped around the warm metal. The bomb was heavier than she expected. The heat made her palms sweat. Released his grip. The bomb was hers now. "You have 10 seconds once I restart the timer," he said. "I suggest you throw it into the pit." "No." Tilted his head. "No. I will not throw it." Pulled the bomb close to her chest. She held it against her body like a mother holding a child. "I will hold it." Gasps came from the crowd. Someone shouted in a language did not understand, called her name. His eyes narrowed. For the first time saw something other than cruelty in his expression. She saw curiosity. "If you hold it when it explodes, you will die," he said. "Your soft body cannot survive." "Maybe." "There is no maybe. This is certain." "Nothing is certain." Looked up at him. Her voice was steady. "You think humans are weak because we break easily, but you do not understand us. We do not survive because we are hard. We survive because we choose to stand when everything tells us to fall." The chamber was silent. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached out with one arm and pressed the button on the bomb. The timer resumed. 10 seconds began to count down. Orange light pulsed faster. The humming grew louder. Heat radiated through his chest. She felt it burning her uniform, burning her skin. Screamed and lunged toward her. 2 guards grabbed him and held him back. Stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7. Closed her eyes. She did not think about death. She did not think about pain. She thought about her grandmother's words. Find the still point, the quiet place, the center of yourself where nothing can touch you. 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4. The bomb was so hot now. Her hands were blistering. She could smell her own skin burning, but she did not let go. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. She found it, the still point, a place of absolute calm inside the chaos. Her heart slowed, her breathing deepened. She was ready. 1 second. The bomb exploded. The world became fire. Orange plasma erupted from the bomb in a burst of violent energy. It was hot enough to melt steel. It was bright enough to blind. It was powerful enough to kill everyone standing within 20 meters. But it did not spread. Held the bomb against her chest with both hands locked tight. Her fingers were wrapped around the metal core like iron chains. When the plasma exploded outward, her body became a wall. Her flesh became a shield. She did not throw it. She did not push it away. She pulled it closer. The explosion fought against her. It wanted to expand. It wanted to consume everything around it, but held it still. She forced the blast inward. She used her own body to contain the fire. The pain was beyond anything she had ever felt. Her hands burned. Her chest burned. Her face burned. She felt her skin split and her flesh cook. She felt bones crack under the pressure. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to let go. She did not let go. In her mind, she was somewhere else. She was in that still point her grandmother had described, a place of absolute quiet, a place where fear could not reach her, a place where pain was just information, not a command. She heard her grandmother's voice. When everything burns, hold on to what matters, let go of everything else. The explosion lasted 2 seconds. It felt like 2 years. Then the fire died. The chamber fell silent. Smoke hung in the air. The smell of burned flesh filled every corner of the room. 300 cadets stood frozen in shock. Was still standing. Her uniform was gone, burned away to ash. Her skin was blackened and cracked. Her hands were destroyed, the fingers fused together into ruined claws. Blood dripped from wounds all over her body. Every breath she took made a terrible wet sound. But she was standing, and everyone else was alive. The blast had not spread. The plasma had not touched a single other person, had contained it all. She had absorbed it into her own body. She opened her eyes. They were red with burst blood vessels, but they were still seeing. She looked at Instructor. "Is that," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "is that strong enough?" Then her legs gave out, broke free from the guards, and caught her before she hit the ground. He was screaming her name over and over. Tears ran down his face as he held her ruined body. "Medics," someone shouted. "Get medics now." Chaos erupted. Cadets ran in every direction. Medical teams rushed in with stretchers and equipment. Aliens who had spent the last 2 days mocking humans now stared at with something new in their eyes. Instructor had not moved. He stood in the exact same spot, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. His black eyes were fixed on the small human woman bleeding in her friend's arms. For the first time in his long military career, he did not know what to say. A soldier approached him. "Instructor, how is this possible? Humans cannot survive plasma exposure. Their bodies are too weak." Did not answer immediately. He was still staring at as the medics loaded her onto a stretcher. Her ruined hands hung over the sides. Her burned face was peaceful, like she was sleeping. "I do not know," finally said. "I do not understand." But somewhere in his cold warrior's heart, understanding was beginning to form. He had measured humans by their bodies. He had judged them by their skin and bones and muscles. He had called them soft meat because they could be cut and burned and broken. He had never measured what was inside them. The medics rushed to the intensive care unit and ran behind them. Other humans on the station, cadets who had been in earlier training cycles, gathered in the halls to watch. Word was spreading fast. A human had held a plasma bomb. A human had let it explode in her hands. A human had survived. In the medical bay, doctors worked frantically. They put in a regeneration tank filled with blue liquid. Machines beeped and hummed. Her vital signs were weak but stable. Sat outside the tank with his head in his hands. Stood beside him, still crying. "Why did she do it?" asked. "Why did she not just throw it away?" Looked up at floating in the blue liquid. Her body was healing slowly. New skin was growing over the burns. New bones were forming in her shattered hands. Human medicine was good, but it would take weeks to fully repair the damage. "She did it for us," said quietly. "She did it so we would not be weak anymore." Shook his head. "That is insane." Maybe, wiped his eyes, but it worked. Outside the medical bay, aliens gathered. Soldiers, psychics, warriors. They had come to see the human who held the fire. They spoke in hushed voices, trying to explain what they had witnessed. They could not explain it. A species with no armor had blocked a plasma blast. A species with no regeneration had survived injuries that should have been fatal. A species with no special abilities had done something that no other species would even attempt. The question spread through the station like wildfire. What are humans made of? Inside the regeneration tank, floated in peaceful darkness. In her dreams, she saw her grandmother smiling. The old woman reached out and touched her face. "You found it," her grandmother said. "The still point, I am proud of you." Smiled in her sleep. Her ruined hands twitched slightly. She was not finished yet. 6 weeks passed. Spent most of that time in the medical bay. The regeneration treatments worked slowly but steadily. Her burns healed, her bones reformed. Her hands, which doctors thought might never work again, regained their function. The scars remained. They would always remain. Her palms were covered in twisted pink tissue that mapped the shape of the bomb she had held. She did not mind the scars, they were proof. During those 6 weeks, everything changed. Word of what did spread beyond Station Orion 7. It reached other stations. It reached coalition headquarters. It reached planets that had never seen a human before. The story grew with each telling. Some versions said she caught the bomb from the air. Some said she swallowed it. Some said she was a secret human weapon engineered for impossible tasks. The truth was simpler and more powerful. She was just a woman who refused to let go. Instructor was called before the Academy commander 3 days after the incident. The commander was a named Elder Kaz, ancient and wise, with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to see through walls. She had commanded soldiers for 200 years. Stood at attention, but for the first time he looked uncertain. "Explain to me what happened," Elder Kaz said. Told her everything. The training, the bomb, the human who asked to hold it. His voice was steady, but something was different in his tone. The contempt was gone. When he finished, Elder Kaz was silent for a long moment. "You gave her a weapon designed to kill," she finally said. "You expected her to fail. You expected her to prove that humans are weak." "Yes, Commander." And instead, struggled to find words. Instead she held it. She contained the blast with her own body. She was willing to die so that others would live. Elder Kaz nodded slowly. "You have trained soldiers from many species, Instructor. Have you ever seen a sacrifice himself for strangers? Have you ever seen a accept death when he could simply regenerate and walk away?" Did not answer. They both knew the answer was no. "Humans are not strong," Elder Kaz continued. "Their bodies break easily. They live short lives. They have no natural weapons or defenses, but they have something else, something that cannot be measured by our assessments." "What is that, Commander?" "Will." Elder Kaz stood and walked to the window. Outside, cadets trained in the yard below. Among them were the remaining humans, no longer pushed to the back. Humans evolved on a harsh world. They survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by refusing to give up. They will sacrifice themselves for people they barely know. They will stand against impossible odds because something inside them says they must. She turned back to, "That is not weakness, Instructor. That is something else entirely." Was reassigned the next day. He was sent to a remote outpost to train new recruits. His replacement was a named Instructor Paul, who specifically requested to study human psychology and training methods. When finally left the medical bay, she found the station transformed. Cadets who had ignored her before now nodded with respect when she passed. Aliens who had mocked humans now asked questions about Earth, about human history, about how such a weak species had survived so long, and were waiting for her outside the medical bay. They had visited every day during her recovery, but seeing her walk on her own made them both cry. "Welcome back," said, embracing her carefully. Could not speak. He just bowed deeply, over and over, tears streaming down his face. He blamed himself for freezing during the first test. He believed had done what she did to make up for his failure. Lifted his chin and made him look at her. "You are human," she said simply. "That means you get to try again." Training resumed. The humans were no longer separated or mocked. Other species began requesting human soldiers for their units, not because humans were strong, but because of what had demonstrated. Humans would stand in the fire when no one else would. One day, a young cadet approached in the meal hall. He was barely an adult by standards, his armor plate still soft and pale. He had watched from the crowd when held the bomb. "Can I ask you something?" he said nervously. "Yes." "How did you do it? How did you hold the bomb?" Looked at her hands. The twisted skin caught the light. She thought about the question for a long time. "I did not hold the bomb," she finally said. The young looked confused. "But you did, everyone saw you." Shook her head. "When I closed my eyes, I was not thinking about the bomb. I was thinking about everyone else in that room. Even Instructor. I was thinking about what would happen to them if I let go." She looked up at the cadet. Her eyes were calm and clear. "I did not hold the bomb," she repeated. "I held everyone else." The cadet did not fully understand, but he nodded anyway and walked away to think. Years later, when he became a commander himself, he would tell that story to his own soldiers. The story of the human who held fire in her hands. The story that changed how the galaxy saw Earth. Served in the coalition for 20 more years. She never became the strongest soldier or the fastest or the most skilled, but she trained hundreds of cadets, humans and aliens alike. She taught them what her grandmother had taught her. Find the still point. Hold on to what matters. Let go of everything else. When she finally retired and returned to Earth, she was old and tired. The scars on her hands had faded but never disappeared. She settled in a small house near the sea, not far from where her grandmother was buried. On quiet nights, she would sit outside and look up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans served alongside a dozen alien species, no longer the weak ones, no longer the soft meat. They were the heart of the coalition now, the ones who would never give up. All because one woman decided to hold on. The end.